You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your educational journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. Incident response provides a structured approach for dealing with security events, ensuring that organizations react quickly, consistently, and with minimal damage. In the cloud, this discipline takes on additional complexity because responders rely on provider telemetry, APIs, and managed services rather than direct control of hardware. The purpose of cloud-aware incident response is to adapt traditional phases: preparation, identification, containment, eradication, recovery, and lessons learned, so they function effectively within provider environments. This requires readiness in logging, clear roles and responsibilities, and flexible playbooks that account for distributed and ephemeral infrastructure. By building incident response plans that use the same elasticity and programmability as the cloud itself, teams can detect and contain issues before they spiral into prolonged outages or widespread compromise. Incident response is typically described as a life cycle with distinct phases that guide responders from initial recognition through to learning from the event. Preparation involves building the tools, policies, and training necessary before an incident occurs. Identification relies on monitoring and telemetry to determine when an event requires action. Containment applies short-term measures to prevent spread, while eradication removes malicious artifacts or backdoors. Recovery restores systems to known good states, and lessons learned improve readiness for the future. In cloud settings, this life cycle remains constant but relies heavily on the ability to orchestrate actions through provider-native controls. Severity classification is a key part of managing incidents, as it provides a structured way to judge business impact. By defining tiers of severity, organizations can determine how quickly to escalate, who to involve, and how often to communicate. For instance, a low-severity incident might involve a single non-production system and require only internal communication, while a high-severity incident involving customer data exposure may demand executive briefings and regulatory reporting. Severity classification removes ambiguity, allowing responders to focus on technical tasks while leadership coordinates business impact. Clear roles and responsibilities ensure that incident response is not chaotic. The incident commander directs overall activity, prioritizing actions and making scope decisions. Technical leads focus on specific domains such as identity, network, or storage. Communications roles handle messaging to stakeholders and customers, while a scribe records every action, hypothesis, and timestamp. Assigning these roles in advance prevents confusion during an actual incident, ensuring that decisions are coordinated and documented. Cloud environments add the requirement that roles often need deep familiarity with provider-specific APIs and services. Playbooks and runbooks bridge the gap between policy and action. A playbook outlines the general approach to a scenario, such as credential theft, while a runbook provides detailed, step-by-step actions to execute. For example, a credential compromise playbook may require revoking access keys and enforcing multi-factor authentication resets, with a runbook showing the precise commands or API calls to use in AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud. Playbooks ensure consistency across incidents, while runbooks ensure precision under pressure. Together, they enable teams to react with both speed and accuracy. Logging readiness is essential in cloud environments where most evidence is ephemeral. Control plane logs capture administrative actions, data plane logs show resource access, and application logs provide contextual behavior. All of these must be time-synchronized using protocols such as NTP to ensure accurate sequencing. Without proper logging, incident response becomes guesswork. By preparing logging in advance, organizations guarantee that when incidents occur, sufficient telemetry exists to reconstruct events, detect anomalies, and preserve evidence. Identity kill switch plans are critical because identity is the primary attack vector in cloud breaches. A well-prepared plan includes the ability to revoke active sessions, disable compromised accounts, and reset authentication requirements such as MFA. For example, if a token is suspected of being stolen, the kill switch invalidates it immediately, while forcing affected users to re-enroll in secure authentication. Kill switch plans must be reversible and precise, preventing global lockouts that disrupt business unnecessarily. Network containment strategies allow responders to shrink the attack surface quickly. These measures include tightening security group rules, blocking egress to prevent data exfiltration, and restricting ingress to controlled bastion hosts for investigation. For instance, if an application is behaving abnormally, its network access can be limited to only diagnostic endpoints. Network containment leverages the same controls used for routine security, but applies them in a more urgent, tactical way to halt attacker movement. Compute containment focuses on isolating workloads without destroying critical evidence. Virtual machines, containers, or serverless functions may need to be quarantined from production traffic, while their memory and storage states are preserved for later forensic analysis. For example, creating snapshots of compromised virtual machine disks provides investigators with artifacts to analyze while preventing the compromised instance from interacting with live systems. The challenge is balancing evidence preservation with halting the attacker's activity. Storage containment ensures that sensitive data cannot be further altered or exfiltrated. Actions may include locking cloud storage objects, enabling legal holds, and pausing lifecycle operations such as deletion or archival. For instance, if suspicious access is detected in a storage bucket, containment measures may freeze its configuration to preserve contents while blocking public access. This strategy prevents attackers from covering their tracks and guarantees investigators have access to the original evidence. Key and secret containment handles cryptographic material and authentication tokens. Responders rotate affected keys, invalidate tokens, and enforce scoped replacements. The emphasis is on reversible changes. If an operation disrupts services, it can be rolled back while maintaining security. For example, compromised API keys can be disabled, while new ones are provisioned with limited access to avoid unnecessary downtime. This balances operational continuity with the urgency of closing security gaps. Cloud incidents may require provider escalation, making it vital to understand support tiers and contact pathways. Documentation should include which types of incidents warrant provider involvement, how to reach support, and what response timelines to expect. For example, forensic access to certain types of metadata may only be available through a provider's premium support channel. Knowing these escalation paths in advance prevents delays during live events and clarifies what responsibilities fall under the shared responsibility model. Communications plans coordinate how information flows during an incident. Stakeholders, regulators, customers, and internal teams must all receive accurate updates at the right time. These plans define communication cadence, escalation triggers, and legal review requirements. For example, regulatory notifications about potential data breaches must be carefully worded and delivered within mandated timelines. By structuring communication, organizations avoid contradictory messages and reduce reputational harm during crises. Forensics collection runs in parallel with containment actions to ensure that evidence is not lost. Artifacts such as disk snapshots, memory captures, and key logs must be preserved in a tamper-evident manner. For example, while compute instances are quarantined, forensic workflows collect and hash their storage for later analysis. Performing collection in parallel prevents responders from accidentally erasing evidence while they stabilize systems. This discipline maintains investigative integrity while enabling rapid response. Finally, risk acceptance and exception handling provide structured ways to deviate from policies when necessary. An incident commander may approve temporary exceptions, such as allowing minimal network access to a critical system to maintain business continuity while containment is ongoing. These decisions are documented with rationale, expiry dates, and compensating controls. By capturing them formally, organizations maintain accountability and ensure that emergency deviations do not become permanent weaknesses. Documentation discipline is a thread that ties the entire response effort together. Every action, hypothesis, timestamp, and responsible party must be recorded as the incident unfolds. This record supports forensic investigation, enables after-action review, and provides defensible evidence for auditors and regulators. For example, documenting exactly when a token was revoked and by whom creates a verifiable chain of actions. Without disciplined documentation, response efforts become opaque, making both analysis and accountability impossible. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Initial triage in cloud environments requires prioritizing the most urgent risks, often starting with identity compromise, potential data exposure, and persistence indicators. Because cloud breaches often stem from stolen credentials or misused tokens, reviewing authentication and role assumption logs becomes the first step. If identity compromise is confirmed, containment focuses immediately on revoking access. At the same time, responders must assess whether sensitive data was exposed through abnormal storage reads or downloads. Persistence is another key indicator, as attackers may create new roles, keys, or automation scripts to maintain access even if the original compromise is closed. Triage sets priorities so resources are spent where they reduce the most impact. Control plane analysis examines the administrative actions taken through provider APIs. Every major cloud service emits logs for operations such as creating roles, modifying firewall rules, or disabling encryption. Reviewing these logs can reveal misuse, such as a sudden creation of high-privilege identities or unusual activity from geographies not normally associated with administrators. Failed authentication attempts, role chaining, and API activity outside business hours all provide signals. By correlating these details, responders can reconstruct attacker movement and determine which actions must be reversed or contained. Data plane analysis complements control plane investigation by focusing on actual access to resources. Logs showing reads, writes, or deletions in storage, databases, and compute resources reveal whether attackers accessed or tampered with sensitive data. For example, an unusual spike in file downloads from a bucket, especially from atypical regions, could indicate exfiltration. Data plane telemetry also captures patterns like repeated failed queries or abnormal replication requests. Analyzing these activities helps responders understand the scope of potential impact, moving the investigation beyond administrative actions to the data itself. Containment for identity compromise centers on revoking tokens, rotating keys, and raising authentication assurance. In practice, this means disabling or deleting suspicious credentials, resetting MFA for affected accounts, and restricting roles to the bare minimum needed. Because identity is so central in cloud attacks, swift containment in this area can prevent further lateral movement. For instance, an attacker who has gained console access must be locked out by revoking active sessions and forcing reauthentication under new security conditions. Identity containment is both immediate and ongoing as investigations expand. When workloads are compromised, containment shifts to isolating compute resources. Virtual machines may be quarantined with network rules, containers paused or restricted, and serverless functions disabled. Crucially, these steps must preserve volatile evidence for forensic analysis. Snapshots of disks or memory should be captured before eradication steps like re-imaging are taken. Network traffic to quarantined workloads is blocked, ensuring that compromised resources cannot be leveraged further while investigators analyze their state. Compute containment balances stopping malicious activity with maintaining investigative opportunities. Storage compromise requires a different containment approach. Actions include disabling public access, enforcing encryption, restricting replication, and preventing lifecycle policies from altering evidence. For example, storage services may allow legal holds that prevent deletion, or overwrite of objects until investigation concludes. These measures ensure that sensitive data cannot be further exposed while maintaining integrity for review. By locking down storage environments quickly, responders stop both active exfiltration and attempts by attackers to cover their tracks. Eradication removes malicious artifacts and restores the environment to a trusted baseline. In the cloud, this might involve deleting injected code, removing rogue IAM roles, or restoring configurations to secure defaults. Backdoors such as scheduled functions or automation scripts created by attackers must be identified and eliminated. Eradication is only safe after thorough evidence collection, so responders know they are not discarding valuable forensic data. Once eradication is complete, the environment should be verified against policy and configuration baselines to ensure no residual compromises remain. Recovery brings services back online from known good images or configurations, restoring workloads from clean templates, reapplying hardened settings, and validating cryptographic material all form part of this phase. Continuous monitoring is often applied during recovery to confirm that malicious activity does not reappear. For example, deploying new workloads with enhanced logging ensures any recurrence is visible immediately. Recovery not only restores service but also reassures stakeholders that operations are safe and resilient after disruption. Root cause analysis investigates how the incident began and which enabling conditions allowed it to succeed. By correlating timelines of detections, control plane changes, and external threat intelligence, responders can identify whether the root cause was a stolen credential, a misconfiguration, or an unpatched vulnerability. Understanding root cause is vital for preventing recurrence. For instance, discovering that weak access policies allowed excessive privilege informs broader remediation and access governance. Root cause analysis is both technical and organizational, feeding into governance reforms as well as technical fixes. Regulatory assessment determines whether the incident constitutes a reportable breach. Different data types carry different obligations. Financial records, personal health data, or government information may all trigger regulatory notifications. Responders must map which data was potentially exposed, how long it was accessible, and under what circumstances. Legal teams guide whether regulatory bodies or customers must be notified. This assessment ensures that the incident response process aligns with compliance requirements as well as technical containment. Cost tracking adds an often overlooked dimension to incident response. Cloud usage costs can spike during attacks, whether through malicious overuse of compute and storage or defensive measures like large-scale logging and snapshots. Labor costs from extended response also accumulate. Tracking these expenses supports insurance claims, budgeting, and executive understanding of the incident's true impact. Cost visibility ensures that the financial dimension of incidents is not hidden behind purely technical narratives. After-action reviews capture the lessons of the incident in structured form. These reviews document corrective actions, assign owners, and set deadlines. They also specify verification criteria so improvements can be tested. For example, if logging gaps were discovered, the corrective action might involve enabling additional telemetry sources, with validation confirmed through future simulations. After-action reviews institutionalize learning, ensuring that the organization improves with each incident rather than repeating mistakes. Readiness improvements are implemented based on after-action findings. This may include updating detection rules, refining access policies, hardening backup strategies, or conducting chaos drills to validate resilience. For instance, a team might add new controls around API key lifecycle management after an incident revealed key sprawl. Readiness improvements ensure that incident response is not static, but evolves as threats and environments change. This continuous cycle strengthens overall security posture. Anti-patterns in cloud incident response highlight what to avoid. Destroying compromised resources immediately may seem like containment, but often erases critical forensic evidence. Global deny policies may block legitimate operations. causing widespread outages. Applying hotfixes directly in production without governance can introduce new vulnerabilities. Recognizing these pitfalls ensures that containment is reversible, evidence is preserved, and remediation follows structured practices rather than panic-driven improvisation. For exam preparation, cloud-specific incident response should be understood as a discipline emphasizing triage, reversible containment, and verifiable recovery. Key points include analyzing both control plane and data plane telemetry, preserving evidence before eradication, and ensuring governance through communication and documentation. Exam scenarios may ask which containment step is appropriate for identity compromise, or how forensic preservation aligns with provider controls. The focus is on combining traditional response principles with the realities of cloud platforms. In summary, cloud-aware incident response weaves together identity controls, network restrictions, workload isolation, and storage protections into a cohesive process. It emphasizes evidence handling, structured communication, and readiness improvement. By tailoring incident response to provider environments and maintaining disciplined documentation, organizations ensure that they can not only withstand incidents but also emerge stronger, with better prepared teams and hardened systems. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.